It started like any other late-night talk show appearance, an A-list celebrity settling into a cushy chair, exchanging pleasantries with the host, and easing into a conversation that, while engaging, rarely strays too far into controversial waters. But on this particular night, something was different. The moment Jon Hamm took his seat across from Seth Meyers, the air crackled with an almost imperceptible tension. He was there to promote his latest project, yet within minutes, the conversation veered off course. A question was asked, perhaps casually, perhaps deliberately, about Meghan Markle. What followed was a moment that would send shockwaves through both Hollywood and royal circles alike. Jon Hamm, best known for his iconic portrayal of the suave yet troubled Don Draper in Mad Men, has long been admired for his wit, intelligence, and ability to navigate the complexities of Hollywood's public arena. Unlike many of his contemporaries, he has never been one to sugarcoat his words or play into the politically correct echo chamber. When he speaks, people listen, not just because of his commanding presence, but because he chooses his words with a precision that leaves little room for misinterpretation. And on this night, he had something to say about Meghan Markle. Something that, depending on who you ask, was either brutally honest or dangerously inflammatory. The term he used, pretender, hung in the air like a loaded gun. It wasn't an offhand remark or a slip of the tongue. It was deliberate. A single word packed with layers of meaning, capable of unraveling years of carefully curated public relations work in an instant. The studio audience reacted in real time, gasps and nervous laughter mixing into an uneasy symphony of shock and amusement. Seth Meyers, ever the professional, tried to keep the conversation from spiraling into something entirely unmanageable, but the damage was done. Jon Hamm had spoken his truth, and the world was listening. For those unfamiliar with Meghan Markle's journey, the word pretender might seem ambiguous. After all, she had gone from being a supporting actress in a legal drama to a globally recognized duchess, then back to an independent figure navigating the treacherous landscape of post-royal life. Some saw her story as a modern-day fairy tale, proof that with enough determination, anyone could rewrite their destiny. Others, however, viewed it as something far less admirable, a calculated ascent built on strategic relationships, media manipulation, and a carefully crafted public persona. Jon Hamm's choice of words seemed to align with the latter perspective, and whether people agreed with him or not, there was no denying that he had reignited a debate that had never truly died down. But why now? Why would Jon Hamm, a Hollywood veteran with no direct connection to Meghan Markle, feel compelled to voice such a strong opinion? Some speculated that he was merely saying what many in the industry were thinking but were too afraid to articulate. Others believed that his words reflected a deeper, more personal sentiment, one rooted in a growing frustration with the blurred lines between celebrity and royalty, authenticity and performance. Whatever his motivation, one thing was certain. He had opened a Pandora's box, and the backlash was immediate. Social media exploded within minutes of the segment airing. Fans of Meghan Markle rushed to her defense, condemning Hamm's remarks as unnecessarily harsh, even misogynistic. They argued that she had done nothing to warrant such public scrutiny, that her only crime was daring to step outside the rigid expectations of the British monarchy. But there was another side to the debate. Hamm's supporters applauded his honesty, praising him for cutting through the carefully controlled narrative that had surrounded Markle since her royal exit. To them, he was simply saying what needed to be said, that the Meghan Markle presented to the public was a construct, a carefully curated image rather than an authentic self. The controversy surrounding Hamm's comments extended far beyond social media discourse. Entertainment news outlets dissected his words with forensic precision, replaying the clip, analyzing his tone, speculating on whether this was an offhand opinion or a calculated statement. Royal commentators weighed in, some agreeing with his assessment, others denouncing it as an unprovoked attack. Even Hollywood insiders were divided. Was this an example of an industry veteran holding another public figure accountable, or was it an unnecessary takedown of a woman who had already endured more than her fair share of public scrutiny? It wasn't just the content of Hamm's statement that fueled the fire. It was also the fact that it came from him. Jon Hamm is not known for scandal or reckless public outbursts. He has built his career on talent and a certain old-school Hollywood charm that values substance over spectacle. For him to make such a pointed remark suggested something deeper at play. It wasn't just a passing comment. It was a direct challenge to Meghan Markle's entire public persona. As the days passed, speculation mounted. Would Meghan Markle respond? Would him clarify his comments or double down? Would the conversation fade into the background? Another fleeting controversy in an industry known for its short attention span? Or was this the beginning of something bigger? A shift in how Hollywood, and perhaps the world, viewed Meghan Markle? To understand the full weight of this moment, one must look beyond the immediate fallout and examine the broader context. Meghan Markle has always been a polarizing figure, her every move dissected, analyzed, and debated. From her days as a television actress to her unprecedented departure from the British royal family, she has occupied a unique space at the intersection of celebrity and royalty. Her supporters see her as a woman who broke free from an outdated institution, carving her own path on her own terms. Her detractors, however, view her as someone who exploited that very institution for personal gain, using her royal connections to build a brand that is as much about commercial success as it is about activism. Jon Hamm's words, intentional or not, tapped into this long-running debate. He had, in a single sentence, encapsulated the skepticism that had followed Meghan Markle since the beginning of her royal journey. And while the controversy would inevitably move through its cycle of outrage, defense, and eventual distraction by the next big news story, the impact of his remarks would linger. Because at the heart of this controversy lies a larger question, one that extends beyond Meghan Markle or Jon Hamm. It is a question about authenticity in an age of image-making, about the fine line between reinvention and deception. Are we, as an audience, too willing to accept carefully curated narratives at face value? Or are we, like Jon Hamm, starting to demand something more? Something real? The battle lines had been drawn. Hollywood versus royalty. Image versus authenticity. Pretender versus the truth. And as the world watched, one thing became clear. This was more than just a late-night interview gone viral. This was a moment that would be remembered, debated, and scrutinized for years to come. The night had all the makings of an entertaining late-night television segment. Celebrity banter, light-hearted jokes, and a charismatic host steering the conversation with effortless charm. Seth Meyers had long been known for his ability to put guests at ease, drawing out entertaining stories and humorous anecdotes. But from the moment Jon Hamm walked onto the stage, it was clear that this interview would be different. Dressed in his usual understated yet polished style, Hamm took his seat, flashing a confident smile at the audience. The applause died down as Seth Meyers leaned forward, already setting up the conversation with his signature wit. The early moments of the interview played out predictably, talk of upcoming projects, casual references to past roles, and the kind of friendly camaraderie that makes late-night television a comforting staple for millions of viewers. Then, the conversation took an unexpected turn. "So, Jon," Meyers began, a glint of mischief in his eyes. "Hollywood's been, let's say, interesting lately. People have been making headlines for things other than their movies. Any thoughts on that?" It was a leading question, open-ended enough to allow Hamm to steer the conversation in any direction he pleased. He could have laughed it off, made a vague comment about how unpredictable the industry was, but he didn't. Instead, he leaned back slightly, considered the question for a brief moment, and then spoke. "Well, there's always been a difference between being famous for what you do and being famous for other reasons." The way he emphasized those last two words sent a ripple of anticipation through the studio. Seth Meyers, sensing something brewing, raised an eyebrow but remained silent, letting Hamm continue. "Take someone like, oh, I don't know," Hamm paused, feigning hesitation. "Meghan Markle." The mention of her name was enough to make the audience shift. Some members clapped, others murmured, while a few let out low gasps. The tension was immediate. There was no turning back now. Meyers, the seasoned host that he was, kept his expression neutral. "Interesting choice," he said, treading carefully. "Go on." Hamm exhaled, then shrugged as if he had simply stated the obvious. "Look, I'm not trying to be cruel here," he continued, his voice measured but firm. "But let's be real, Meghan Markle isn't a movie star. She's not a great actress, and yet somehow, she's one of the most talked about people in the world. And why? Because she married into a family that she later spent years publicly criticizing? A murmur ran through the audience. Meyers let out a chuckle, perhaps to lighten the mood, but the weight of HAMM's words had already settled. Some people would say she's just trying to tell her side of the story, Meyers offered. HAMM smirked. Her side of the story? Sure. But how many versions of that story are we supposed to accept? Every few months, there's a new interview, a new documentary, a new angle. At some point, it starts to feel like a carefully constructed performance rather than an honest recounting. The crowd reacted once more, this time with a mixture of applause and nervous laughter. It was one of those rare moments in television where a guest's comments created an instant divide. Some agreeing wholeheartedly, others taken aback by the bluntness of it all. Meyers, still in control of the conversation, steered it forward. So, if she's not a great actress and not a royal anymore, what do you think she is? HAMM didn't hesitate. A pretender. The word landed like a hammer. It was stark, unmistakable, and unapologetic. HAMM knew exactly what he was saying, and there was no ambiguity in his tone. He wasn't making a joke or dancing around his opinion. He was stating it outright. The audience reacted immediately, some gasping, others erupting into nervous laughter, and a handful clapping in apparent agreement. Meyers, always the professional, kept his expression unreadable but let the moment linger. It was clear that whatever the intended direction of this segment had been, it had now become something else entirely. Sensing the energy in the room, Meyers did what any seasoned host would. He attempted to offer a counterpoint. To be fair, she did walk away from a lot of luxury, a lot of privileges, to try and start fresh. HAMM nodded, but his smirk remained. And yet, she's still doing interviews about it, still signing deals based on her royal connections, still playing the role. Walking away from privilege isn't the same as rejecting it completely. You don't get to keep the attention and admiration while simultaneously claiming you don't want it. The statement struck a chord. It was a sentiment many had expressed, but few had dared to say so bluntly on a mainstream platform. The conversation had shifted from lighthearted celebrity chatter to something far more serious. An interrogation of Meghan Markle's public persona, her credibility, and the authenticity of her self-proclaimed reinvention. As the interview continued, Meyers tried to steer the discussion toward lighter topics, but the mood had already been set. The clip of HAMM's remarks would be dissected, replayed, and debated long after the show ended. And within minutes of airing, social media would explode. As HAMM left the stage at the end of the interview, the atmosphere in the studio remained charged. Some audience members appeared uncomfortable, while others exchanged approving nods. The conversation had done what all compelling television should. It had sparked a reaction. But the real storm was only just beginning. The moment the segment aired, the internet erupted. Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, and every major entertainment news site had something to say. The clip of HAMM calling Meghan Markle a pretender was quickly pulled from the show's social media accounts, retweeted thousands of times with polarizing opinions. Some called him brave for speaking the truth. Others accused him of being bitter and unnecessarily cruel. Royal commentators jumped into the fray, offering their takes on whether HAMM's remarks held merit or were simply another example of celebrity criticism gone too far. Some noted that he wasn't entirely wrong. Meghan Markle's rise had been anything but conventional, and questions about her sincerity had long plagued her public image. Others, however, saw the comment as an unwarranted attack, one rooted in a deeper disdain for Meghan that extended far beyond her career choices. Hollywood insiders weighed in as well, with some actors and producers subtly backing HAMM's take while others distanced themselves entirely. There was speculation about whether HAMM's comments would have professional repercussions, whether Meghan Markle or her representatives would respond, and whether Seth Meyers himself would face backlash for letting the conversation unfold the way it had. For Meghan Markle, the controversy was yet another chapter in an already turbulent public life. For Jon HAMM, it was a moment of unfiltered honesty, one that would solidify his reputation as someone unafraid to call things as he saw them. Regardless of where people stood on the issue, one thing was clear. The conversation was far from over. The word hung in the air long after it was spoken. Pretender. A single word with enough weight to unravel years of public relations efforts, enough ambiguity to be interpreted in 100 different ways, and yet, in HAMM's delivery, it was as precise as a dagger. It wasn't a slip of the tongue or an accidental jab. He had chosen that word deliberately, and with it, he had ignited a firestorm. But what did Jon Hamm mean by it? What was he implying when he labeled Meghan Markle a pretender? The interpretation of that word quickly became the center of a heated debate. Some argued that he was calling out her Hollywood past, implying that her acting career had never been particularly noteworthy and that her rise to global prominence had little to do with talent. Others believed he was referring to her role in the British royal family, suggesting that she had played a part in a larger narrative that was ultimately disingenuous. And then there were those who saw it as something even deeper, a criticism not just of Meghan Markle but of the broader culture of celebrity reinvention. To understand the full impact of Hamm's statement, it is essential to break down the different ways in which Meghan Markle has been viewed by the public. She has been described as everything from a groundbreaking modern royal to a manipulative opportunist. She has been championed as a voice for progress and social change, while simultaneously being accused of capitalizing on her royal connections for personal gain. The truth, as always, likely lies somewhere in the middle. But Jon Hamm's choice of words suggested that, in his eyes, there was something fundamentally inauthentic about her public persona. The first and most immediate interpretation of Hamm's remark was that he was referring to her acting career. Meghan Markle was never a household name in Hollywood before marrying Prince Harry. She was best known for her supporting role in the legal drama Suits, a show that had its following but never reached the cultural impact of other primetime television series. While her performance was competent, it was not the kind of career-defining role that cemented actors in the industry's upper echelon. When Hamm called her a pretender, was he implying that she had elevated herself to a level of fame and importance that far exceeded her actual body of work? It's a criticism that has been quietly voiced in Hollywood circles for years. The entertainment industry is filled with actors who spend decades honing their craft, working tirelessly for recognition, and still never achieve the kind of global platform that Meghan Markle now possesses. For some, this is a testament to her ambition and ability to navigate the complex world of fame. For others, it is a frustrating example of how true merit is often overshadowed by strategic positioning. Hamm, a veteran of the industry, may have been giving voice to an opinion shared by many but rarely expressed so publicly. Beyond Hollywood, however, there was an even deeper layer to his remark: the royal connection. If there is any place where the word pretender carries an especially sharp edge, it is in the realm of royalty. History is filled with figures labeled as pretenders to the throne, individuals who claimed a status or title that was not rightfully theirs. While Hamm was not suggesting that Meghan Markle had falsely claimed royal status in a literal sense, his use of the word hinted at the idea that she had embraced the title and all the benefits that came with it, while rejecting the responsibilities that traditionally accompanied it. From the moment Meghan Markle joined the royal family, she presented herself as someone eager to modernize the institution, to break down its rigid traditions and bring a fresh perspective. For some, this was seen as a necessary and welcome change. For others, it was perceived as a disruption, an attempt to reshape an ancient institution into something that better suited her personal ambitions. Hamm's comment may have been reflecting the belief that Meghan had played the part of a dutiful royal only for as long as it served her interests before stepping away and capitalizing on the fame it brought her. There is also a broader interpretation of Hamm's criticism, one that extends beyond Meghan Markle herself and touches on a larger societal trend. The era of social media and personal branding has blurred the lines between authenticity and performance. In today's digital landscape, it is not uncommon for public figures to carefully construct an image that may not always align with reality. Celebrities, influencers, and even politicians engage in a constant process of self-reinvention, curating their narratives in ways that make them more marketable to the public. Meghan Markle, in many ways, embodies this modern phenomenon. Her journey from actress to royal to global brand is a textbook example of the power of narrative control. She has positioned herself as an advocate, a humanitarian, and a cultural disruptor, leveraging her platform to speak on issues ranging from mental health to social justice. And while many of her efforts have been praised, they have also been met with skepticism. Critics argue that her activism often appears performative, that her causes seemed carefully chosen to align with a brand strategy rather than a deeply held personal conviction. Was HAMM's remark a direct challenge to this aspect of her persona? Was he pointing out that Meghan Markle, like many in the modern celebrity sphere, had mastered the art of appearing genuine while carefully managing her public image? If so, it was a sentiment that resonated with many who have grown increasingly wary of the way public figures craft their narratives in an age of media saturation. The backlash to HAMM's comment was swift, but so was the support. Those who had long questioned Meghan Markle's authenticity saw his words as a validation of their suspicions. Others felt that his statement was an unfair oversimplification, a dismissal of a woman who had, despite the controversy, undeniably carved out a significant place in modern culture. But perhaps the most interesting reaction came from those who were previously indifferent to Meghan Markle, people who, upon hearing HAMM's critique, suddenly found themselves re-examining how they perceived her. Jon HAMM's words were not a throwaway comment. They were a challenge. They forced audiences to question whether Meghan Markle's carefully crafted image was one of sincerity or calculation. They reignited debates about celebrity reinvention, about the nature of fame, and about how much control public figures should have over their own narratives. And most importantly, they made people talk. As the days passed, the conversation surrounding HAMM's remark continued to evolve. Media outlets dissected his words, analyzing every nuance of his delivery. Royal commentators weighed in, discussing whether his perspective was shared by members of the monarchy who had remained publicly silent. Hollywood insiders speculated on whether his remarks would have any lasting impact on Markle's brand. But in the end, one question remained at the heart of it all. Was Jon HAMM right? Had Meghan Markle truly crafted a persona that was more fiction than reality? Or was she simply a woman navigating the complexities of fame and power in a way that anyone in her position would? Regardless of the answer, one thing was certain. HAMM had spoken a single word, and in doing so, he had reignited one of the most polarizing debates of the modern era. Hollywood has always been a world of contradictions, a place where image is everything, but authenticity is demanded. It's an industry that thrives on reinvention, yet punishes those who appear too calculated in their attempts to reshape their public persona. Meghan Markle's relationship with Hollywood is a reflection of this paradox. Once an actress working her way through supporting roles and auditions, she is now a globally recognized figure, but not because of her work on screen. Her transformation from TV star to duchess to media mogul has been both remarkable and controversial, and nowhere is this more evident than in the way Hollywood itself perceives her. For years, Meghan Markle was a familiar but not particularly high-profile actress in Hollywood. Her most notable role was as Rachel Zane in the legal drama Suits, a show that had a solid following but never reached the level of a cultural phenomenon. Unlike actors who make their mark through critically acclaimed performances or box office success, Markle's career was steady but not extraordinary. She was a working actress, neither struggling nor at the top of the industry's A-list. In an industry filled with aspiring stars, her journey was respectable but unremarkable. Everything changed when she met Prince Harry. Overnight, she became one of the most talked about women in the world. Suddenly, the Hollywood circles that had once overlooked her were now watching closely. Some saw her as an inspiring figure, proof that an actress from a relatively modest background could ascend to royalty. Others, however, viewed her rise with skepticism, questioning whether her relationship with Harry was a strategic move rather than a romantic one. Behind closed doors, the whispers began. Industry insiders speculated about her motives, her long-term plans, and whether she truly intended to embrace royal life or was merely using it as a stepping stone to something bigger. Hollywood is a town built on relationships, and those who had once interacted with Meghan Markle before her royal marriage had varying accounts of their experiences. Some described her as warm, ambitious, and eager to make connections. Others recalled a calculated, sometimes distant personality, someone acutely aware of status and opportunity. Jon HAMM's remarks on late-night television did more than just spark a viral moment. They reignited a conversation that had been simmering in Hollywood for years. His choice of words echoed sentiments that had been shared in private conversations, but rarely spoken publicly. If Meghan Markle had been a fixture in the Hollywood social scene before her royal wedding, Her return to the entertainment industry after stepping down as a working royal brought a new layer of complexity. For some in the industry, Markle's reemergence as a media figure felt inauthentic. She had left Hollywood behind for a new life in the UK, only to return with the kind of global fame that few actors could achieve in a lifetime. While many actors and filmmakers struggle for years to gain influence, Markle had, in the eyes of some, bypassed the usual Hollywood route entirely. Her fame was no longer tied to her work as an actress but to her status as a former duchess and the controversies surrounding her departure from the royal family. This led to an unspoken divide in Hollywood. There were those who embraced her, seeing her as a woman who had taken control of her narrative and leveraged her platform for causes she cared about. Figures in the entertainment industry who aligned with her message of social justice, racial equality, and women's empowerment publicly supported her endeavors. For them, Meghan Markle represented a new kind of Hollywood power player, one who didn't need the traditional mechanisms of the industry to remain relevant. But there was another side to the story. Some in Hollywood saw her as someone who had manipulated the media, curating an image of victimhood while simultaneously using the very press she claimed to despise. They pointed to her and Prince Harry's deals with streaming platforms like Netflix and Spotify as evidence that their public departure from royal life was less about seeking privacy and more about monetizing their story. There was a growing sentiment that Markle was not an actress who had returned to Hollywood, but a public figure attempting to reshape herself as a media mogul. The response to her projects was mixed. While there was initial excitement around her production company's deal with Netflix, questions soon arose about the substance of her creative contributions. Hollywood is a place where storytelling reigns supreme, and for all the discussions about Meghan Markle's influence, she had yet to prove herself as a compelling storyteller in the entertainment space. The cancellation of some of her planned projects only fueled further criticism, with some arguing that the industry had indulged her fame more than her actual ability to create meaningful content. Jon Hamm's comments tapped into this broader Hollywood sentiment. He wasn't just expressing a personal opinion. He was articulating a perspective that many in the industry shared but hesitated to voice publicly. His remark about Meghan Markle being a pretender struck a chord precisely because it reflected an undercurrent of frustration among those who felt that she had become an inescapable presence in media and entertainment despite lacking the body of work to justify it. One of the most telling signs of Hollywood's mixed feelings toward Markle was the reaction of other celebrities to Hamm's statement. Some stars quickly distanced themselves from the controversy, unwilling to take sides in a debate that could alienate parts of their fan base. Others subtly supported Hamm's perspective, either by liking social media posts that referenced his comments or by making vague statements about authenticity in the entertainment industry. There was also the question of how Markle herself would respond. Would she address Hamm's comments directly, dismissing them as yet another example of a male celebrity attacking a woman who had defied expectations? Or would she ignore them entirely, letting her supporters in Hollywood defend her while she maintained silence? Historically, Meghan Markle had been selective in the battles she chose to fight publicly. While she had previously taken legal action against media outlets for defamation, she had also mastered the art of letting public opinion shift in her favor without direct intervention. Beyond the immediate controversy, Hamm's remarks signaled something larger, a reckoning within Hollywood itself about who gets to wield influence and how that influence is earned. Meghan Markle's journey was unlike any other, but it raised uncomfortable questions about the nature of celebrity, merit, and the power of narrative. Was she a trailblazer who had cleverly used her platform to advocate for important causes? Or was she an opportunist who had carefully orchestrated her rise to prominence, ensuring that she remained at the center of public discourse regardless of her actual contributions to film and television? The industry had no single answer. Hollywood has always been a place of reinvention, where stars can fall from grace and rise again with the right project or the right narrative shift. Meghan Markle's presence in the entertainment world was still evolving, and whether she would ultimately be embraced or quietly sidelined depended on what she did next. Jon Hamm's words had not just sparked a momentary debate. They had forced Hollywood to confront its own contradictions. In a town that values both reinvention and authenticity, where did Meghan Markle truly fit? Was she carving out a new space for herself, or was she merely playing a role in the most elaborate performance of her career? As the dust settled from Hamm's late-night remarks, one thing remained clear. Hollywood had not yet made up its mind about Meghan Markle. And until it did, the debate over who she really was and what she truly represented would continue to rage on. The moment Jon Hamm's interview aired, the internet erupted. The segment had barely finished when clips began circulating across social media, spreading like wildfire. Within minutes, #JonHamm and #Meghan Markle were trending worldwide, and the battle lines were drawn. Supporters and critics from all corners of the internet weighed in, dissecting Hamm's words, arguing over their validity, and reigniting one of the most polarizing discussions of the modern era. On Twitter, the reactions ranged from admiration to outrage. Some users praised Hamm for his brutal honesty, calling him a rare Hollywood figure unafraid to speak his mind in an industry often dominated by political correctness. They saw his remarks as a necessary call-out of what they believed was an over-manufactured public persona. Others, however, saw it as yet another example of a man in power unfairly attacking a woman who had faced relentless scrutiny ever since she entered the royal sphere. The discussion quickly escalated into a full-blown social media war, with both sides gathering evidence to support their views. Those who sided with Hamm pointed to Meghan Markle's frequent media appearances, book deals, and high-profile interviews, arguing that her claims of wanting privacy were at odds with her actions. They cited her Netflix documentary, her Spotify deal, and her numerous tell-all interviews as proof that she had strategically positioned herself as a perpetual victim while simultaneously profiting from the very media attention she claimed to despise. On the other side, Meghan's supporters were just as vocal. They accused Hamm of perpetuating a long-standing smear campaign against Markle, one rooted in bias and an unwillingness to accept that she had broken free from an outdated institution. To them, Hamm's comments were not about Meghan's authenticity, but about his discomfort with a woman who had dared to challenge the establishment. They brought up the racism and sexism she had endured from the British press, arguing that Hamm's remarks played into the same tired narrative used to discredit powerful women. Instagram and TikTok became battlegrounds for impassioned debates. Influencers, royal commentators, and entertainment reporters took to their platforms to analyze Hamm's words, breaking down every sentence, every pause, every shift in tone. Some content creators made videos defending him, arguing that he had only vocalized what many had been thinking. Others created counter videos, passionately explaining why his comments were both unfair and unnecessary. Memes flooded the internet. Some depicted Hamm as a truth-teller exposing Hollywood hypocrisy, while others mocked his remarks, portraying him as yet another out-of-touch celebrity inserting himself into a conversation that didn't concern him. Screenshots of his past interviews were resurfaced, with some users questioning whether his criticisms of Meghan were hypocritical given his own career choices and past public statements. Meanwhile, Reddit threads dedicated to royal gossip and Hollywood scandals exploded with discussion. Users debated whether Hamm had a personal vendetta against Markle, if he was simply voicing a broader frustration with the way fame and power function in the modern era. Some theorized that Hamm's comments reflected a growing resentment among Hollywood elites who felt sidelined by figures who had bypassed the traditional routes to success. Others speculated that there was more to the story, perhaps an unspoken history between Hamm and Markle that had led to his blunt critique. Celebrity reactions added another layer to the drama. Some A-list stars subtly weighed in, liking or commenting on posts that either supported or condemned Hamm. A few even spoke out publicly, with some defending Meghan and others applauding Hamm for his candor. Notably, certain figures in Hollywood who had previously been vocal about their support for Meghan remained conspicuously silent, fueling speculation that they too might share Hamm's sentiment but were hesitant to say so outright. Royal commentators and experts were quick to join the fray. British tabloids seized upon Hamm's words, using them as further evidence that Meghan Markle's reputation had suffered irreparable damage. Some royal analysts argued that Hamm's comments reflected a growing exhaustion with Meghan's narrative, particularly in the UK, where many had long questioned the sincerity of her grievances. Others countered that his remarks were nothing more than the latest in a long string of unjustified attacks against her. As the controversy unfolded, Meghan Markle's team was faced with a crucial decision: how, or if, to respond. Historically, she had taken different approaches when faced with public criticism. Sometimes, she chose silence, allowing her allies and the media to handle the backlash on her behalf. Other times, she directly addressed controversies, either through legal action or carefully crafted public statements. The question now was whether she would acknowledge HAMM's remarks or let them fade into the background as the news cycle moved on. For HAMM, the reaction to his comments was a mix of admiration and backlash. His fan base largely supported him, seeing him as a refreshingly candid voice in an industry where people often tiptoed around controversy. However, there were also those who felt that his remarks had crossed a line, that he had gone beyond constructive criticism and entered the realm of unnecessary personal attack. Some questioned whether he would face any professional consequences, though others believed that, if anything, the incident had only strengthened his reputation as a Hollywood figure unafraid to speak his mind. Media outlets continued to analyze the fallout, with think pieces exploring the deeper implications of HAMM's statement. Was this an example of Hollywood's changing attitudes toward celebrity reinvention? Did it signal a shift in how the entertainment industry viewed Meghan Markle? Or was it simply another fleeting controversy that would soon be replaced by the next big headline? Beyond the immediate reactions, the controversy highlighted larger societal questions about fame, power, and the blurred lines between authenticity and performance. In an era where public figures carefully curate their images, the debate over what is real and what is manufactured has never been more relevant. Meghan Markle's journey, from actress to duchess to global influencer, has been emblematic of these complexities. Jon Hamm's words, whether one agreed with them or not, had forced people to confront these issues once again. As the online firestorm continued, one thing became clear. This was not just about a single comment on a late-night show. It was about the larger conversation surrounding Meghan Markle, a conversation that showed no signs of ending. For every person who believed him had simply spoken the truth, there was another who saw his words as yet another example of the relentless scrutiny Meghan had faced since the day she stepped into the public eye. And as long as that debate remained unresolved, the echoes of Hamm's statement would continue to be heard across social media, news outlets, and Hollywood circles alike. As the controversy surrounding Jon Hamm's remarks about Meghan Markle continued to unfold, speculation began to rise about whether there was a deeper history between the two. Was this merely an off-the-cuff opinion from a Hollywood veteran, or was there an underlying reason behind his sharp critique? The entertainment industry is a small world, and while Hamm and Markle had never been publicly linked in any major capacity, some observers wondered whether their paths had crossed in ways that might have influenced his blunt assessment of her character. One of the first questions that surfaced was whether Jon Hamm and Meghan Markle had ever worked together. While Hamm has spent most of his career in high-profile roles in critically acclaimed projects like Mad Men, The Town, and various award-winning films and series, Markle's career was primarily tied to television, most notably her role on Suits. Their careers never intersected directly, but that didn't necessarily mean they had never met. Hollywood events, charity galas, award shows, and industry gatherings often bring together actors from different levels of fame, and it wasn't impossible that their paths had crossed at some point. Some fans and entertainment reporters dug into past Hollywood events to see if there had ever been a documented interaction between the two. There were no widely circulated photos of Hamm and Markle together, but there were overlapping instances where both had attended the same industry gatherings. One such event was an early 2010s Hollywood charity gala where both were reportedly present. While there was no evidence of them speaking, it did lead to speculation that Hamm might have formed an impression of Markle long before she became royalty. The idea that Hamm's criticism came from personal experience rather than just general industry sentiment became even more intriguing when some recalled an interview he gave years before Markle's royal wedding. In that interview, Hamm made a passing comment about how Hollywood was filled with people who were more interested in being famous than in perfecting their craft. He didn't name names at the time, but now, in light of his remarks about Markle, some wondered if he had been alluding to her even then. Industry insiders also weighed in on the debate. A few anonymous sources suggested that Hamm had long been wary of celebrities who gained prominence through means other than their artistic achievements. Unlike some Hollywood actors who embraced the world of social media and branding, Hamm had always distanced himself from those aspects of fame, choosing instead to focus on his work. Markle, on the other hand, had skillfully built her public image through a combination of acting, philanthropy, and later, her marriage into royalty. The contrast between their approaches to fame could have contributed to HAMM's disdain for what he saw as a performance rather than genuine talent. There was also the question of whether HAMM's opinion of Markle had been shaped by mutual acquaintances. The entertainment industry is deeply interconnected, and it wouldn't be surprising if HAMM had heard stories about Markle from people who had worked with her. While Suits was filmed in Toronto, Markle had spent considerable time in Los Angeles before her royal marriage, moving in certain Hollywood circles. HAMM, with his long-standing presence in the industry, likely knew people who had interacted with her personally or professionally. Some speculated that HAMM's remark about Markle being a pretender wasn't just a reference to her transition from Hollywood to royalty and back, but also to the way she navigated relationships in the industry. It was no secret that Markle had strategically built connections with influential figures, from media moguls to political leaders to top executives. To some, this was simply smart networking, something any ambitious person would do. To others, especially those who had spent years proving themselves through their craft, it felt more like calculated maneuvering. Another theory that surfaced was that HAMM's view of Markle might have been influenced by his own experiences with fame and media scrutiny. Unlike Markle, who actively courted the media through interviews and partnerships, HAMM had always been known for maintaining a relatively private life. He had experienced the downsides of fame, but had never been accused of leveraging personal controversy for attention. To someone like him, Markle's approach to public relations may have seemed artificial, an ongoing performance rather than an authentic journey. As the debate continued, some wondered whether HAMM would elaborate on his comments or clarify his stance. Would he double down, explaining in greater detail why he felt Meghan Markle was a pretender? Or would he backtrack, claiming that his words had been taken out of context? So far, he had remained silent, letting the storm unfold around him. Whether this was a calculated decision to avoid further controversy or a deliberate choice to let his statement stand on its own was unknown. On Meghan Markle's side, there was also the question of whether she would respond. While she had, in the past, taken legal action against tabloids and media outlets that she felt misrepresented her, she was unlikely to engage in a public feud with him. However, her silence did not mean she was unaffected by the controversy. If anything, the growing debate over her authenticity only added to the long-running scrutiny that had followed her since she entered the public eye. As more media outlets picked up on the story, the focus shifted from HAMM's initial comment to the broader question of Hollywood's perception of Meghan Markle. If HAMM, a respected industry veteran, felt this way, how many others shared his opinion but had not voiced it? Were there other actors, directors, and producers who had similar reservations about Markle but had chosen to remain silent to avoid backlash? And if so, what did that say about her standing in Hollywood? While it was unlikely that any major Hollywood figure would publicly echo HAMM's words, his remarks had undoubtedly given voice to a sentiment that had been lurking beneath the surface. Whether it would lead to a shift in how Markle was perceived in the industry remained to be seen. For now, the debate continued, fueled by HAMM's single word and the endless interpretations it invited. The history between Jon Hamm and Meghan Markle, whether direct or indirect, had become a topic of fascination. Whether his opinion was based on personal encounters, secondhand stories, or simply his perspective as an observer of Hollywood culture, it had resonated with many. His words had exposed an ongoing conversation about fame, authenticity, and the fine line between reinvention and manipulation. And as long as that conversation remained unresolved, the impact of his remark would continue to ripple through both Hollywood and the public consciousness. Late-night television has always been a stage for cultural moments that transcend entertainment. Whether it's a celebrity revealing shocking personal news, a comedian making a political statement, or an unexpected confrontation between a guest and a host, these shows have the power to set the news agenda and spark widespread debate. Seth Meyers, known for his quick wit and ability to navigate sensitive topics, had hosted countless celebrities on his show. But when Jon Hamm made his now infamous remarks about Meghan Markle, it became one of the most talked-about segments in recent memory. What made this particular interview stand out wasn't just the controversy of Hamm's statement, but the way it played out on screen. From the moment Hamm mentioned Meghan Markle's name, there was a visible shift in the energy of the conversation. Meyers, a seasoned host with years of experience in handling high-profile guests, knew immediately that this was a moment that could either spiral out of control or turn into a television goldmine. The way he responded was subtle but effective. Rather than shutting him down or pushing back aggressively, he allowed the moment to breathe. He leaned in, raised an eyebrow, and let the audience react. This technique, often employed by late-night hosts, is designed to maximize audience engagement. By giving HAMM space to elaborate, Meyers ensured that the comment wouldn't just be a passing remark. It became the focal point of the entire interview. From a production standpoint, the moment was executed perfectly. The studio cameras captured every reaction, the nervous laughter from the audience, HAMM's casual yet deliberate delivery, and Meyers' well-timed follow-up questions. The segment was edited and uploaded to the show's social media accounts almost immediately after the broadcast, ensuring that it reached an even wider audience than the live airing. Within hours, the clip had been viewed millions of times, shared across platforms, and dissected by media analysts. The virality of the interview wasn't accidental. Late-night television thrives on moments that generate buzz, and producers understand the power of controversial or unexpected statements. The timing of HAMM's remarks was also key. The media cycle was already saturated with discussions about Meghan Markle, her latest projects, her ongoing tension with the royal family, and debates about her public image. HAMM's words added fuel to an already burning fire, making it an irresistible story for news outlets. There was also the element of HAMM himself. He wasn't a tabloid fixture or a reality TV star known for stirring controversy. He was a respected Hollywood actor, someone with credibility in the industry. His words carried weight, and because he rarely engaged in public feuds or media drama, people paid attention when he spoke out. If a more polarizing figure had made the same statement, it might have been dismissed as another attention-seeking moment. But HAMM's reputation gave his critique an air of legitimacy, making it harder for people to ignore. The reaction to the interview also highlighted the power of late-night television in shaping cultural narratives. While traditional media outlets had covered the ongoing debates about Meghan Markle's image, it was this unscripted, candid moment on a comedy talk show that reignited the discussion in a way no formal news report could. Late-night hosts have long played a role in setting the tone for public conversations, and this was another example of how an offhand remark, when delivered in the right setting, could spark a global debate. Beyond the interview itself, the social media response played a massive role in amplifying the moment. Within minutes of the segment airing, Twitter exploded with reactions. Fans of him applauded him for his honesty, while Meghan Markle's supporters condemned him for what they saw as an unnecessary attack. The polarization of opinions ensured that the clip was shared widely, with people on both sides of the debate eager to make their voices heard. TikTok and Instagram, platforms known for their ability to turn viral moments into cultural phenomena, were flooded with edits of the interview. Some users clipped HAMM's comments with dramatic music, emphasizing the weight of his words. Others spliced together Meghan Markle's past interviews and speeches to contrast her narrative with HAMM's accusation. Influencers and media personalities quickly jumped into the discussion, offering their takes and fueling the conversation further. One of the most interesting aspects of the virality was how different media platforms framed the story. Entertainment news outlets largely treated it as celebrity gossip, analyzing HAMM's comments in the context of Hollywood drama. British tabloids, on the other hand, seized on the interview as validation of their long-standing criticism of Meghan Markle, using it as further proof that even Hollywood insiders were beginning to turn against her. American mainstream media outlets took a more balanced approach, presenting HAMM's remarks as part of a larger discussion about celebrity culture, authenticity, and the way public figures shape their own narratives. The Seth Meyers interview also highlighted the unpredictability of viral moments. While some television segments are carefully orchestrated to go viral, complete with pre-planned jokes, staged surprises, and strategically placed sound bites, this moment felt organic. HAMM's delivery was casual, almost offhand, which made it all the more impactful. It didn't feel like he was trying to create a headline. It felt like he was saying something he genuinely believed, and that authenticity made it resonate. However, the viral nature of the interview also raised questions about the responsibility of late-night hosts and their guests. Should HAMM have been more careful with his words, knowing that anything said on a platform as large as Seth Meyers' show would be dissected and debated endlessly? Should Meyers have intervened more? steering the conversation away from such a divisive topic? Or was this simply an example of television doing what it does best, providing a space for unfiltered discussions that reflect the cultural moment? One thing was certain. The impact of the interview extended far beyond the night it aired. Even weeks later, media outlets were still referencing HAMM's remarks, analyzing their implications, and debating whether they were justified. The controversy had taken on a life of its own, evolving from a single moment on late-night television into a much larger conversation about fame, credibility, and the nature of celebrity reinvention. For Seth Meyers, the episode was a reminder of the power of his platform. Late-night hosts often walk a fine line between entertainment and influence, knowing that their interviews can sometimes shape public opinion in ways they never intended. Whether or not he agreed with HAMM's assessment of Meghan Markle, Meyers had facilitated a conversation that was now impossible to ignore. As for HAMM, the viral moment had cemented his reputation as someone unafraid to speak his mind. Whether that would have long-term consequences for his career remained to be seen, but in the immediate aftermath, he appeared unaffected by the backlash. He had said what he wanted to say, and he had let the world react as it would. For Meghan Markle, the impact of the interview was more complicated. It was another instance of her name being dragged into a public controversy, another chapter in the ongoing debate over her authenticity. Whether she chose to respond or not, the discussion about her image, her career, and her place in Hollywood had been reignited. And in a world where perception is everything, the lasting effects of HAMM's words were still unfolding. Ultimately, the Seth Meyers interview was a perfect storm of timing, personality, and controversy. It was a reminder of how quickly narratives can shift in the digital age, how a single comment can spark a global debate, and how late-night television, despite being framed as entertainment, remains one of the most powerful platforms for cultural discourse. And as the dust settled, one question remained. Was this just another fleeting Hollywood controversy, or had Jon Hamm's words changed the way people viewed Meghan Markle forever? In the days following Jon Hamm's now infamous remarks on Seth Meyers' show, a new debate emerged. It was no longer just about whether Meghan Markle was a pretender or not. It was about whether Hamm had crossed a line. Was his critique a fair assessment of her public persona, or was it an unnecessary attack on someone who had already been scrutinized relentlessly by the media? This was not the first time a celebrity had made a controversial statement about another public figure, but what set Hamm's comments apart was the way they resonated. It wasn't just gossip column fodder. It was a statement that reignited a much larger discussion about how women in the public eye, especially those who have challenged traditional power structures, are judged. The backlash to Hamm's words, and the defense mounted in his favor, revealed deep-seated divisions in the way people viewed Meghan Markle and the broader cultural expectations placed on female public figures. Supporters of Hamm's remarks argued that he had simply spoken the truth. They saw his comments as a much-needed dose of reality in an industry that often rewards image over substance. To them, Hamm's words were not an attack but an observation, one that reflected a growing frustration with celebrity culture and the ways in which public figures manipulate their narratives. Meghan Markle, they argued, had built a brand on the idea of being an outsider who had been unfairly treated by both the media and the royal family, all while continuing to seek public attention and lucrative deals. Hamm's remark, in their eyes, was a refreshing moment of honesty from someone unafraid to push back against the prevailing narrative. Others, however, saw it differently. For them, Hamm's comments felt like yet another example of a man in a position of power diminishing a woman who had dared to step outside the expectations placed upon her. They pointed out that Meghan Markle had been subjected to relentless criticism from the British press, much of it fueled by racist and sexist undertones. To them, Hamm's words echoed the same sentiment, reducing Markle's accomplishments and struggles to a simple accusation of inauthenticity. Critics of Hamm's remarks also questioned the fairness of his critique. If Meghan Markle was a pretender, then what did that say about the many other celebrities who had carefully curated their images to maintain public appeal? Hollywood was filled with figures who reinvented themselves, who played up certain aspects of their personalities for the cameras while keeping other parts of their lives hidden. Why was Markle being singled out? Was it because she had dared to marry into the royal family and challenge its traditions? Or was it because, unlike many in Hollywood, she had positioned herself not just as a celebrity, but as a humanitarian and activist. The discussion extended beyond social media and entertainment news. Feminist commentators weighed in, pointing out the ways in which women who assert themselves in public life are often labeled as manipulative or calculated, while men who do the same are seen as strategic and ambitious. To them, HAMM's remarks fit into a broader pattern of how women, particularly women of color, are scrutinized in ways that their male counterparts are not. They argued that even if one took issue with some of Markle's choices, the language used to describe her, words like pretender, calculating, and opportunistic, carried an implicit bias that would not have been applied to a man in the same situation. But those defending him pushed back against this argument. They insisted that the criticism was not about Markle's gender or race, but about the way she had shaped her public narrative. To them, the issue wasn't that she was a woman who had sought power. It was that she had done so while portraying herself as a victim of the very structures she benefited from. They pointed to her continued presence in the media, her high-profile partnerships, and her ongoing use of the royal title she had supposedly rejected as evidence that HAMM's critique was justified. Adding another layer to the controversy was the question of whether it was appropriate for HAMM, a Hollywood veteran, to make such a remark on a public platform. Late-night television is known for its humor and candid discussions, but it is also a highly visible space where words carry weight. Some questioned whether HAMM should have been more careful with his language, knowing that his words would be dissected and debated across the internet. Was he aware of how much his remark would blow up? Did he intend to spark such a heated conversation, or had he simply underestimated the reaction? There was also the issue of professional courtesy within the entertainment industry. Hollywood, despite its vastness, operates on relationships and networks. Publicly criticizing another celebrity, especially one as high-profile as Meghan Markle, could have consequences. While some praised HAMM for his honesty, others wondered whether his remarks would impact his standing in the industry. Would he be seen as someone who had spoken out against a powerful media figure and suffered for it? Or would he be embraced as a rare voice of reason in an industry that often avoids uncomfortable truths? The royal aspect of the controversy also complicated matters. Meghan Markle was not just any public figure. She had been part of the British monarchy, an institution with a long history of managing public perception. By criticizing her, HAMM had inadvertently waded into a political and cultural debate that extended far beyond Hollywood. His remark was not just about a celebrity. It was about someone who had been at the center of one of the most controversial royal exits in modern history. For some, HAMM's comment was a validation of what they had suspected all along, that Meghan Markle had crafted an image that did not align with reality. For others, it was yet another example of how difficult it is for women to be taken seriously when they step into roles of power and influence. The debate over whether he had crossed a line was, in many ways, a reflection of the larger divisions in public opinion about Markle herself. As the controversy continued to unfold, one question remained. Would HAMM address the backlash? In the days following the interview, he remained silent. There was no follow-up statement, no clarification of his remarks. Whether this was a strategic decision or a sign that he simply did not care about the criticism was unclear. What was clear, however, was that his words had struck a nerve. For Meghan Markle, the controversy was yet another moment in a long history of public scrutiny. It was unlikely that she would respond directly, but the debate over HAMM's comments ensured that she remained at the center of the cultural conversation. Whether one viewed her as a victim or an architect of her own narrative, there was no denying that she continued to command public attention. In the end, the debate over whether Jon HAMM had crossed a line was unlikely to be resolved. It was a question that depended on one's perspective, on how one viewed Meghan Markle, on how one interpreted the role of celebrities in shaping public narratives, and on what one believed about the responsibilities of those who critique them. But regardless of where people stood, one thing was certain. HAMM's words had ignited a conversation that was far from over. As the debate over Jon HAMM's remarks raged on, the question that loomed over the controversy was how Meghan Markle would respond, if she would respond at all. For years, she had been at the center of public scrutiny, her every move analyzed, debated, and criticized. This was not the first time she had been the subject of a media storm, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. But this time, the attack had come from an unexpected source, not from a British tabloid, a royal commentator, or an anonymous internet critic, but from a highly respected Hollywood actor. Historically, Meghan had approached public criticism in a variety of ways. Sometimes, she took legal action, as she did with British tabloids that published private letters and personal stories she deemed invasive and defamatory. Other times, she spoke out in interviews, using platforms like Oprah Winfrey's to tell her side of the story and control the narrative. But more often than not, she remained silent, allowing speculation to run its course while letting allies and supporters defend her in the media. In the immediate aftermath of HAMM's comments, there was no official statement from Meghan or her representatives. Instead, her silence became a story in itself. Some saw it as a strategic move, an unwillingness to dignify HAMM's words with a response. Others speculated that she was carefully weighing her options, considering whether addressing the remarks would only fuel the controversy further. Regardless of the reason, her decision not to respond right away only intensified public interest. Supporters of Meghan quickly took to social media to defend her, with high-profile allies subtly signaling their support. Some celebrities who had previously worked with or publicly supported Meghan posted messages about resilience and empowerment, which many interpreted as indirect responses to HAMM's remarks. A few prominent Hollywood figures spoke out directly, criticizing HAMM for what they saw as an unnecessary attack on a woman who had already faced an extraordinary level of public scrutiny. Meanwhile, British tabloids and royal commentators used Meghan's silence as evidence that HAMM's comments had struck a nerve. Some suggested that she was caught in a difficult position. If she responded, it would keep the controversy alive, but if she remained silent, it might appear as though she had no defense against his critique. Others speculated that she was waiting for the right moment to address the issue in a controlled and carefully curated manner. Days passed, then weeks, and still, there was no direct response. Instead, Meghan continued with her scheduled appearances and projects, seemingly unfazed by the media firestorm. Reports emerged that she was focused on her latest endeavors, from philanthropic initiatives to her ongoing media deals. Some interpreted this as her way of rising above the controversy, refusing to be dragged into a public feud. Others believed it was an intentional strategy, allowing the backlash to play itself out without giving it additional fuel. But even in her silence, the controversy did not disappear. Opinion pieces continued to analyze HAMM's words and what they signified about Hollywood's evolving view of Meghan Markle. Some outlets speculated that her lack of response was an indication that the criticism was starting to take a toll, that the carefully crafted public image she had maintained was beginning to show cracks. Others argued that by not engaging, she was taking the high road, proving that she didn't need to justify herself to anyone. Eventually, subtle responses began to emerge. Insiders close to Meghan reportedly dismissed HAMM's remarks as baseless, claiming that he was simply voicing the frustrations of an industry resistant to change. A few well-placed leaks suggested that Meghan found the comments disappointing but not surprising, given how often she had been targeted by public figures who, in her view, misunderstood her journey and motives. There were also signs that her media team was working behind the scenes to shift the conversation. Positive stories about her philanthropic efforts and upcoming projects began to circulate, subtly redirecting attention away from the controversy. This was a familiar tactic, one that Meghan and her team had used effectively in the past. By focusing on her work and staying out of the direct line of fire, she was able to regain control of the narrative without engaging in a public back-and-forth with HAMM. While some saw this as a smart move, others criticized it as another example of Meghan avoiding difficult conversations. HAMM's remarks had touched on a growing sentiment within Hollywood that Meghan's reinvention from actress to duchess to media mogul had not been entirely authentic. By not addressing the criticism head-on, some argued, she was allowing doubts about her credibility to linger. However, those close to Meghan pointed out that she had no obligation to respond to every critique thrown her way. They argued that she had already spent years defending herself against public attacks and that engaging in this particular controversy would only serve to amplify it. To them, the best way for Meghan to counter HAMM's remarks was not with words but with actions, by continuing to build her brand, advocate for her causes, and prove her critics wrong through success. The longer Meghan remained silent, the more the media speculated. Some wondered if she would eventually address HAMM's remarks in a future interview or documentary. Others believed she was waiting for the controversy to die down, confident that the fast-paced news cycle would eventually move on to the next scandal. Whatever her strategy, one thing was clear. Meghan Markle was no stranger to controversy, and she had learned how to navigate it better than most. As time passed, the debate over HAMM's comments began to fade, replaced by new headlines and fresh celebrity scandals. But the discussion it had sparked about Meghan's public persona, her authenticity, and her place in Hollywood continued. Whether HAMM's words had done any lasting damage to her reputation remained to be seen, but one thing was certain. Meghan Markle had once again found herself at the center of a cultural conversation, proving that, love her or hate her, she remained one of the most talked-about figures of her generation. The British royal family is an institution that operates on centuries of tradition, formality, and carefully curated public relations. It is known for its ability to weather scandals without directly engaging with them, a strategy often summed up by the phrase, never complain, never explain. This approach has allowed the monarchy to maintain a sense of dignity and distance from the chaos of the media cycle, even when facing internal conflicts that have spilled into the public eye. So when Jon Hamm's remarks about Meghan Markle went viral, it was unsurprising that Buckingham Palace remained silent. But silence does not always mean indifference. While the royal family would never officially comment on a late-night television interview involving Meghan, the impact of Hamm's words undoubtedly rippled through royal circles. Over the years, the monarchy had taken a cautious stance on anything related to Meghan and Prince Harry, carefully avoiding any statements that could escalate tensions. However, royal insiders and commentators had long served as unofficial voices for the institution, and their reactions provided a glimpse into what the palace might have been thinking. In the immediate aftermath of Hamm's comments, several royal experts weighed in, many of them reinforcing the sentiment that Meghan had long been viewed as an outsider within the family. Some suggested that Hamm's remarks had simply echoed what members of the royal household had felt privately but had never been able to say publicly. The term pretender, while harsh, was interpreted by some as a reflection of the belief that Meghan had never fully embraced the role of a royal, but had instead used it as a platform for her own ambitions. Others pointed out that Hamm's words, whether intentional or not, had reignited the debate over whether Meghan had ever been truly committed to royal life. The narrative within palace walls had always been that Meghan and Harry's departure had been their choice, but Hamm's comments seemed to reinforce the idea that Meghan had positioned herself more as a celebrity than as a working royal. Some royal commentators speculated that this latest controversy might further solidify the firm's decision to maintain its distance from Harry and Meghan, ensuring that any potential reconciliation remained on their terms. For King Charles and Prince William, who had spent the past few years trying to stabilize the monarchy after Meghan and Harry's exit, this moment likely served as a reminder of why they had been so cautious in handling the Sussexes. The family had made it clear that they were moving forward, focusing on their duties rather than engaging in public disputes. From their perspective, Hamm's comments, while potentially validating their frustrations, were ultimately a distraction from the larger mission of preserving the monarchy's image. Behind closed doors, opinions within royal circles may have been more candid. Insiders reported that some members of the family and their staff had quietly acknowledged that Hamm's remarks reflected a sentiment they had long held. Meghan's relationship with the royal family had been strained from the start, and even after stepping back, she had continued to make headlines, often in ways that cast the institution in a negative light. For those within the monarchy who had been frustrated by her actions, Hamm's blunt critique may have felt like an unexpected, if unofficial, vindication. However, not everyone within the royal sphere would have welcomed Hamm's remarks. While some believed his comments had truth to them, others saw them as an unnecessary provocation that only served to stir up more drama. The last thing the monarchy wanted was another public spat involving Meghan and Harry, particularly at a time when they were trying to modernize and rebuild trust with the public. For King Charles, who had made efforts to project an image of unity and progress, another controversy involving Meghan was likely viewed as an unwelcome distraction. Prince William, in particular, had reportedly been firm in his belief that the best way to handle the Sussexes was through distance, not conflict. Unlike previous royal feuds that played out in a more public fashion, William had taken a measured approach, refusing to engage in any tit-for-tat media battles. It was unlikely that he would see Hamm's comments as anything more than another moment in an ongoing media spectacle, one that did not warrant a response from the royal family. Royal aides, who were responsible for managing the monarchy's public image, likely worked behind the scenes to ensure that HAMM's comments did not gain too much traction within palace communications. The firm had become increasingly skilled at managing public relations crises, knowing when to respond and when to let a story fade away. Given that HAMM's remarks were not an official statement from a royal insider, but rather a celebrity's opinion on a talk show, the palace's strategy was clear: stay quiet, maintain focus on royal duties, and let the news cycle move on. Meanwhile, British tabloids seized the moment, with some framing HAMM's comments as further proof that Meghan's reputation was deteriorating, while others used it as an opportunity to revisit old grievances about her time in the royal family. Royal biographers and analysts debated whether this controversy had any long-term implications for Meghan's standing in both Hollywood and the UK, with some suggesting that it reinforced the divide between her and the monarchy. For Harry, the controversy placed him in an especially difficult position. He had spent years trying to balance his loyalty to Meghan with his complicated relationship with his family. While he had often defended her against media attacks, he had also spoken about wanting to mend ties with his father and brother. HAMM's remarks, while seemingly directed at Meghan alone, had the potential to add another layer of strain to Harry's already tense position between two worlds. There was speculation about whether Harry might publicly support Meghan in response to the controversy, but as time passed, it became clear that he was unlikely to wade into this particular debate. Unlike previous incidents where he had directly addressed negative press about Meghan, this situation was different. It was not a scandal rooted in the British media or palace leaks. It was an unexpected critique from an American actor with no known personal vendetta. Engaging with HAMM's comments would have only given them more attention, something neither Harry nor Meghan seemed interested in doing. As the weeks went on, the royal family's silence proved to be an effective strategy. While HAMM's comments had initially generated a media storm, they did not have any lasting impact on the monarchy itself. King Charles, Prince William, and the rest of the royal family continued with their public engagements, appearing unbothered by the controversy. Their focus remained on their responsibilities, ensuring that they were seen as stable and committed to their roles. In the grand scheme of things, HAMM's remarks were just another chapter in the ongoing saga of Meghan Markle's relationship with the royal family. They did not change the monarchy's stance, nor did they provoke any public reaction from the institution. But they did serve as a reminder that Meghan's name still carried weight in media discussions and that, even years after her departure, she remained a subject of debate and scrutiny. For Meghan, this moment was yet another test of her ability to navigate controversy without engaging in direct conflict. For the royal family, it was further proof that their decision to distance themselves from public drama had been the right one. And for the public, it was a glimpse into the enduring complexities of Meghan's legacy. One that, no matter how much time passed, continued to spark discussion, division, and debate.